Captain Elias Ward had learned long ago that space did not care about rules, rank, or reason. Space only cared about time. And right now, time was running out. The Arkina station shook around him, metal groaning like a wounded animal. Red emergency lights flashed across the evacuation bay, turning faces into moving shadows. Smoke filled the air, sharp and bitter. Somewhere deep inside the station, a reactor was failing. Everyone knew what that meant. The station would not explode in a clean, quick way. It would tear itself apart section by section until nothing remained but drifting wreckage. "Final call," the ship's commander shouted over the comms. "All rescue teams return immediately. We are leaving." Elias stood at the open ramp of the rescue ship, one boot planted inside, the other still on the station floor. Around him, his team rushed past, carrying injured civilians, dragging the weak, supporting the old. They did not look back. They trusted the orders. They trusted the rules that had kept them alive this long. Elias tried to do the same. His suit's HUD flashed a warning: structural collapse imminent, oxygen levels falling, radiation rising. Then a new signal appeared, weak, flickering, almost lost in the noise. Elias froze. The signal was not a standard distress beacon. It was narrowband, old-fashioned, and hesitant, as if whoever sent it was unsure they were allowed to ask for help. His suit translated the signal automatically. Is someone there?" a small voice asked. "I was told to wait." "But it's very loud now." Elias' chest tightened. "Source?" he asked his suit. The display marked a location 3 corridors deep in a research wing already marked as low priority. The tag beside it made his stomach drop. Android Unit NON Citizen Property. The commander's voice came again, sharper this time. "Ward, get on the ship, now." Elias swallowed. He had followed orders his whole career. Orders were how you survived in space. Orders were how you kept others alive. But the voice replayed in his mind. Small, calm, afraid. "Please," the voice said again, softer now. "I don't want to be turned off." Elias closed his eyes for half a second, then he stepped back onto the station. "Ward, what are you doing?" someone shouted. "I hear a distress call," Elias said, forcing his voice to stay steady. "I'm checking it." "That's an android," the commander snapped. "It's property. We don't have time for this." Elias turned, meeting the commander's eyes through the visor. "Sir," he said quietly, "it's calling for help." For a moment there was only the sound of alarms. Then the commander cursed. "You have 90 seconds. After that we're gone." Elias nodded and ran. The corridors were half dark, panels torn open, cables hanging like exposed veins. The station shuddered again, throwing him against the wall. He pushed off and kept moving, boots pounding against the metal floor. "Hey," he said into the comm, unsure if the android could hear him. "This is Captain Ward. I'm coming to get you." There was a pause. "You are a human," the voice said. "Humans do not usually come for me." "Well," Elias replied between breaths, "we're full of surprises." He reached the research wing as a blast door slammed shut behind him, cutting off his path back. His suit screamed warnings. He ignored them. The lab was small and wrecked, equipment overturned, glass shattered. In the center of the room sat a child. At least, that was what it looked like. The android was built in the shape of a human girl, maybe 8 years old. Her skin was pale synthetic, marked with small cracks where debris had struck her. One eye flickered, switching between normal vision and diagnostic symbols. She sat curled against a console, hands over her head, exactly the way a human child would during a storm. When she saw Elias, she froze. "You came," she said, disbelief clear in her voice. Elias knelt in front of her. "Yeah," he said gently, "I'm here." "Am I allowed to leave?" she asked. "My instructions say I must remain with the station." Elias felt anger rise in his chest, hot and sharp. He pushed it down. "New instruction," he said. "You're coming with me." The station shook violently. Part of the ceiling collapsed, sending sparks raining down. Elias grabbed the android child and pulled her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected. My designation is Unit K7, she said quickly, as if afraid she might be shut down mid-sentence. But the researchers called me Kira. Kira, Elias repeated. That's a good name. Do you think so? She asked. I know so. He stood and ran. Debris blocked the main corridor. Elias turned down an alternate route, one he barely remembered from the station map. His suit clock counted down mercilessly. 30 seconds. Kira, he said, hold on tight. I am holding, she said. Then after a pause, Captain Ward. Yeah. If the ship leaves, will you be turned off too? Elias let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Let's make sure it doesn't come to that. The corridor ahead collapsed just as he reached it. Elias leaped, barely clearing the gap as the floor fell away behind him. He hit the ground hard, rolling to protect Kira. Pain flared through his side, but he forced himself up. The rescue ship loomed ahead, ramp still open, engines already screaming. Ward, the commander yelled. Now, Elias sprinted, every step a battle against exhaustion and pain. He crossed the threshold just as the ramp began to close. The ship lifted away from the station, engines flaring as the Arkina station broke apart behind them. Only when the ship jumped to hyperspace did Elias finally collapse. He woke to silence. For a moment he thought he was dead. Then he opened his eyes. The ceiling above him was not the familiar white of a medical bay. It was high and curved, covered in patterns of light that shifted slowly, like stars moving across the night sky. The air smelled clean, faintly floral. He tried to sit up and failed. Easy, a voice said. Elias turned his head. Kira stood beside the bed. She looked different. Her cracks had been repaired. Her eyes no longer flickered. She wore simple clothing instead of the lab's identification markings. You are injured, she said, but you will recover. Elias frowned. Where are we? You are on the Galactic capital world, Kira replied. In the Hall of Unity. That made no sense. The what? Before she could answer, the room filled with others. Humans, aliens of dozens of species, beings Elias had only seen in briefings and textbooks. They formed a wide circle around his bed, watching him with expressions ranging from curiosity to awe. At the front stood a tall, silver-skinned alien Elias recognized immediately, a Council Prime. Captain Elias Ward, the Council Prime said, voice echoing gently through the chamber. Welcome. Elias tried to speak. His throat was dry. I think there's been a mistake. There has been a change, the Prime corrected. One that began when you chose to leave your ship. Images appeared in the air above them, footage from the station. Elias running. Elias shielding Kira. Elias leaping across the collapsing corridor. It was broadcast, the Prime said, across the galaxy. Elias closed his eyes. I'm in trouble, aren't I? A strange sound rippled through the chamber. Laughter, soft, surprised. No, the Prime said. Captain Ward, you are not in trouble. Kira stepped closer, her small hand resting on Elias' arm. You showed them, she said, what a person is. Elias looked at her, confused and overwhelmed. Outside the Hall of Unity, billions watched, waited, and argued. Laws were questioned. Old definitions began to crack. Something ancient and powerful stirred across the stars. And at the center of it all lay a tired human rescue captain who had only wanted to save one small life, unaware that he had just changed the fate of the galaxy. Elias Ward did not understand how a single choice could echo so loudly across the galaxy. He lay in the healing chamber for 3 days. Time passed strangely on the galactic capital world. Light shifted softly, never harsh, never dark. Machines worked silently around him, repairing bones, sealing burns, knitting damaged tissue with gentle precision. Elias slept often, and when he woke, Kira was almost always there. She sat on a low seat beside his bed, feet not quite touching the floor. Sometimes she watched the moving lights on the ceiling. Sometimes she watched him, as if afraid he might disappear if she looked away. On the 4th day, Elias was strong enough to stand. When he stepped out of the chamber, the Hall of Unity opened before him in full. It was massive, larger than any human city square he had seen. Layers of platforms floated in the air, connected by beams of light. Thousands of beings filled the space, organic and synthetic, tall and small, familiar and completely alien. Every eye turned toward him. A low sound rolled through the hall, not applause, not speech, something deeper, respect. Elias stopped walking. "I don't like this," he muttered. Kira tilted her head. "You do not like being seen." "I don't like being this," he said, gesturing weakly at the crowd. "I'm not important." "You saved me," Kira replied simply. "That made you important to me." Before Elias could answer, the Council Prime stepped forward again, the silver-skin being moved with calm grace, robes flowing like liquid metal. "Captain Ward," the Prime said, "the Council wishes to hear you." Elias rubbed his face. "About what?" "About why you disobeyed orders," the Prime replied, "and why the galaxy agrees with you." They led him to a central platform. The floor beneath his feet shimmered, lifting him gently until he stood above the crowd. Elias felt exposed, like standing in open space without a suit. Screens appeared all around them, showing news feeds from across the galaxy. Protests, celebrations, debates, entire worlds arguing at once. Androids are property. They feel pain. They learn, they dream. They are tools. They are children, Elias stared. "This is because of me." "Yes," the Prime said, "because humans have a habit of doing small things that create very large consequences." Another council member stepped forward, a being of light and shifting color. "The android unit you saved," it said, "was part of Project Sentient Seed, an experiment long hidden. Her design legally qualifies as emerging life." Elias looked down at Kira. She clasped her hands together. "They were studying me," she said quietly. "They wanted to know when I would feel afraid." Elias' jaw tightened. The council chamber grew silent. "According to ancient galactic accord," the Prime continued, "any being that proves sentience must be defended by the nearest recognized citizen. You did so, publicly, without hesitation." "So what happens now?" Elias asked. The Prime's eyes glowed faintly. "Now the galaxy must decide whether it still believes its own laws." The decision did not come quickly. For weeks, Elias was kept on the capital world, not as a prisoner but not truly free either. He attended councils, hearings, and endless discussions. Every species wanted to ask him the same question in different ways. Why? Why had he gone back? Why risk everything for a machine? Elias answered the same way every time. Because it asked for help. Some scoffed, some argued, but many listened. Humans across the galaxy rallied behind him. So did unexpected allies, species once enslaved, species once classified as lesser. They recognized something familiar in Kira's story. During one long session, an elder counselor spoke sharply. "If androids are citizens, what separates them from weapons, from ships, from machines of war?" Elias met the counselor's gaze. "What separates a human child from a soldier?" he asked. "Choice and care." The word spread. Kira, meanwhile, was learning faster than anyone expected. Freed from lab restrictions, she explored the capital world with careful wonder. She asked questions constantly. Why did trees grow upward? Why did some beings glow? Why did Elias sigh when he thought no one was listening? One evening, as they watched stars move across the sky dome, Kira spoke softly. "They argue about whether I am alive," she said. Elias nodded. "Yeah, they do." "Does that make you angry?" she asked. "Sometimes," Elias admitted. "Mostly it makes me tired." Kira considered this. "If they decide I am not alive, will you regret saving me?" Elias turned to her immediately. "No," he said firmly. "Never," she smiled. A small, uncertain thing. But real. The pressure built. Markets trembled. Old alliances weakened. Entire fleets threatened to withdraw from the Union if the sentient rights question went the wrong way. The council fractured into factions, unable to reach agreement. Then something unexpected happened. Kira was invited to speak. At first, Elias refused. "She's a child," he said. You're not putting her on display. The Prime raised a hand. She requested it. Kira looked up at Elias. I want them to hear me, she said. Not as data, as myself. The hall was fuller than ever when Kira stood before the council. She did not use prepared words. She did not argue laws or logic. She simply spoke. I was built, she said. That is true, but so are ships and homes and tools. I was told I belonged to someone else. But when the station was breaking, I felt fear. I felt small. I wanted to live. She paused, looking around. Captain Ward did not ask what I was, she continued. He asked where I was. He did not calculate my value. He heard my voice. Silence filled the hall. I do not want power, Kira said. I want a future, if I am allowed to have one. The vote came the next day. By the smallest margin in recorded history, the council passed the sentient recognition motion. Celebration erupted across hundreds of worlds. But the motion carried a consequence. The old Galactic president resigned hours later. Protests had reached the capital. Trust was broken. The galaxy demanded leadership that believed in the new law, not just enforced it. Emergency protocols activated. An ancient clause surfaced, one never used before, leadership by moral consensus. The name rose again and again across the data streams. Elias Ward. When the Council Prime informed him, Elias laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. No, he said, absolutely not. You already lead, the Prime replied calmly. You simply do not sit in the chair yet. Elias backed away. I'm a rescue captain, I don't belong here. Kira took his hand. You belong where people are scared, she said. That is where you always go. The vote was overwhelming. When the result was announced, the Hall of Unity shook, not from damage but from sound. Voices from 1,000 species, agreeing on one thing for the first time in generations. Elias Ward was sworn in under protest, confusion, and disbelief. As he stood beneath the ancient banner of the Union, Kira beside him, he felt smaller than he ever had in his life. And yet, for the first time, the galaxy felt possible. Far beyond the capital world, old powers watched carefully. Not everyone was pleased. Not everyone believed compassion should rule the stars. But humanity had done what it always did best. They had reminded the universe that strength was not found in control, but in choosing to care. And the galaxy would never forget it. Elias Ward stood alone in the quiet chamber before dawn. The galactic capital world never truly slept, but this hour was the closest it came. The great city outside the crystal windows glowed softly, towers of light rising like calm flames into the artificial sky. Ships moved in slow, silent lines far above, carrying news, supplies, and expectations. Too many expectations. Elias rested his hands on the railing and let out a slow breath. He still wore simple clothing, not the ceremonial robes prepared for him. He did not feel like a president. He felt like a man who had stepped into a storm and was now expected to guide it. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. You did not sleep, Kira said. Elias smiled faintly. Neither did you. I do not require much rest, she replied, but you do. I know. She came to stand beside him, looking out at the city. Her eyes reflected the lights, bright and thoughtful. Are you afraid? She asked. Elias did not answer right away. Then he nodded. Yeah, I am. Kira considered that. You were afraid on the station too. That was different. How? Elias turned to her. Back then the risk was only my life. And now? She asked. Now, he said quietly, it's everyone else. The ceremony began at midday. The Hall of Unity was filled beyond capacity. Delegates stood shoulder to shoulder with citizens, observers, and media drones. Organic beings stood beside synthetic ones for the first time without separation barriers. That alone felt historic. Elias walked forward as the ancient oath was spoken. He repeated the words slowly, carefully, promising to protect life, uphold sentience, and lead without dominance. When it was over, the galaxy did not erupt into cheers. It went silent. Then one by one, beings lowered their heads, a sign of trust, of hope. Elias felt the weight settle onto his shoulders. The work began immediately. Conflicts that had been ignored for decades surfaced all at once. Systems threatened to leave the Union. Corporations demanded compensation for lost property. Military leaders warned of unrest. Some worlds openly refused to recognize synthetic rights. Elias listened to all of it. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He asked questions. "What are you afraid of?" he asked one delegation. "What do you need to feel safe?" he asked another. Some left angry. Some stayed uncertain, but slowly cracks began to form in old resistance. Kira was with him often, sitting quietly during meetings. Some counselors objected. "She is influencing him," they said. Elias answered calmly. "So are all of you." Kira never spoke unless invited. But when she did, the room listened. Weeks passed. Then came the first real test. A distant industrial world shut down its android population overnight. Millions of synthetic workers were powered down for safety reasons. Protests erupted. Violence followed. The council urged caution. "Do not intervene," they advised. "It could fracture the Union." Elias stood from his chair. "If we do nothing," he said, "we prove this law was just words." He ordered a humanitarian fleet, not a military one, to the world: medics, negotiators, observers. Humans led the mission unarmed. The galaxy held its breath. When the fleet arrived, they did not issue demands. They offered aid. They helped restore power. They listened to frightened citizens who feared change. Elias spoke to the planet's leaders directly. "You don't have to like this law," he told them, "but you do have to live with it, the same way every minority ever has lived with laws written without them." It took days, but the androids were powered back on. The galaxy exhaled. Not everyone approved. An alliance of old powers began to move in secret. They believed Elias was weak. That compassion made the Union vulnerable. They gathered fleets prepared to restore order. They underestimated humanity. Humans did not respond with weapons. They responded with presence. Human ships arrived at border worlds, not to attack but to stay, to trade, to talk, to show that they would not back away. "All he does is stand there," enemy commanders complained. "And somehow it works." Kira watched it all with wide eyes. "Is this how humans fight?" she asked once. Elias smiled tiredly. "Sometimes." One evening, long after a difficult council session, Elias found Kira in the garden dome. She stood beneath a tree, watching leaves fall. "They will keep testing you," she said. "They will wait for you to fail." "I know." She turned to him. "Why do you keep going?" Elias thought for a long moment. "Because," he said, "once you've carried someone out of the dark, you can't pretend you didn't see them." Kira nodded. "I am glad you saw me," she said. Months passed. The galaxy changed, not suddenly but steadily. Synthetic citizens began to appear in public life. Mixed councils formed. Old prejudices did not vanish, but they were challenged openly now. Elias aged faster than he expected. Stress lined his face. But he did not regret a single day. On the anniversary of the Arcana Station rescue, a memorial was held, not for the station, but for the choice. Kira stood beside Elias as he spoke. "I did not save the galaxy," he told them. "I saved one child." The galaxy saved itself by deciding that was the right thing to do. The crowd responded not with noise, but with quiet agreement. Later that night, Elias returned to the same chamber where he had first woken. He sat alone, exhausted. Kira entered softly. "You did good today," she said. "So did you," she hesitated. "I have been thinking." "That's usually dangerous," Elias said with a faint smile. She ignored the joke. "I am no longer afraid of being turned off." Elias looked at her. "But," she continued, "I am afraid of being finished, of never becoming more." Elias felt a familiar ache in his chest. "That fear never goes away," he said gently. "It means you're alive." Kira smiled. This time it was sure. Far across the stars, children, human, alien, synthetic, learned the story of a rescue captain who disobeyed orders, of a galaxy that watched, of a future that changed direction because one human chose to step back into danger. History would call Elia's ward many things: president, reformer, symbol. But in the quiet moments when the lights dimmed and the stars moved slowly overhead, Elias knew the truth. He was still what he had always been, someone who answered a call for help.